So the other day you asked your Twitter followers if they had any questions on Tesla, and I've gone through and picked out some of the best ones which I saw. One of the top ones I saw was from Maya Thacker, who's someone I've seen in the community a lot, and he has a tweet which states, "I only have two questions for Elon Musk right now." So I wanted to sort of get your thoughts on what on these two topics. And it is Tesla testing FSD on the Semi? And
Hmm.
will FSD on the Semi be priced higher or equal to other Tesla cars? And then a line underneath from him is, "It blows my mind why Elon rarely discusses the revolutionary product and that no shareholders really ask about it." So FSD for Semi.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm sure they're testing it somewhere. I think I saw a tweet from Homar's catalog, Omar, that talked about there may have been some internal testing going on with the semi and the automated capabilities there, the full self driving capabilities there. But the fact that it's not live yet means that they have a lot of kinks to work out with that product, and that's probably why they're not talking about it yet. And it also could be that Elon has overpromised and underdelivered on self-driving for so long now that even if they came out and talked about it, people are going to be like, okay, right, cool, sure, you know, okay, whatever. So I think they need to get the car stuff figured out first to really send the message. And I really believe that they're well on the path to achieve that because the city driving has been completely and I keep talking about this on my channel. I've stopped driving. I've stopped driving around my area. So make it so that everybody can experience that. And then once that happens, I think the conversation automatically shifts to, okay, what else can Tesla automate? And then the semi should naturally become the next thing that gets talked about from that perspective. So I think the semi piece is more dependent on the car piece being finished. And once it does, yeah, once it's done there, there'll be no other option but to talk about the semi. And then the bigger piece of that is if Tesla can prove that they can get a road missile to drive itself, then shouldn't the bot also be something that they should be able to fix or solve through software as well? And that is where the conversation starts getting weird around Tesla. So it kind of transitioned away from this manufacturing company to fully being an artificial intelligence company because the software they'll use for the cars, they'll be able to use for the bot and the semi and whatever else they come up with. Freaking robot vacuums. I don't know. But it becomes a big lever for them to leverage in the next generation of technology utilizing artificial intelligence for sure.
Hmm. And perhaps the FSD beta testing on the cars is the testing for it on the Semi, because surely
Of course.
most of the technology is there, and then it's a few tweaks about adding a trailer and those sort of things.
Yeah, I mean it's also the same thing for the bot too. The company has openly said that the same stack they'll use for this AGI sort of thing that they talk about, or the ability to sort of understand the real world through video, they'll use the same exact method for the bot as well. So everything that's being used for the car to learn those things that they're learning, the techniques, how to process data, how to gather data, how to write code around the data, what neural nets to, how to leverage the neural nets to make the card do what it needs to do is the same exact process on the bot. It's just a different form factor. So everything is going to, all future artificial intelligence development from the company will be possible because of what they did with full self driving on the cars right now, for sure.
So next question is from Michael Fan, who asks, "What will it take to justify a $10 trillion market cap for Tesla?" Not financial advice, of course.
Full self driving, not financial advice. Full self driving, yeah, for sure. I think they can probably get to, not financial advice. They can probably get to somewhere between 4 to 6 trillion with cars and energy at full ramp without any software, just based on the amount of volume they're going to be able to put out there And the fact that the auto market is going to take probably another decade or two fully to transition over to all new cars being electric, plus you have to replace the entire fleet, plus you have population growth globally still going down, but it's growing. And you also have uh, developing economies and developing world starting to come online with the ability to purchase electric vehicles and things like that. So the market is just I mean, it's unbelievably large. So from that standpoint, plus the energy side of the business, which is not talked about too much, but it's starting to gain steam, and the amount of demand they have there for that part of the business, then 4 to 6 trillion just from those two things sounds correct. Just back of the napkin math. Um, 1 to 2 trillion dollars at 15 to 20% net income with a 2030 PE basically gets you to that math ish. So that's one. But then once you layer on full self driving, then all hell breaks loose because now all of a sudden you have a company that could have a monopoly potentially on the software if they're able to solve it because they're taking the vision approach without all the crazy amounts of sensors, and they have the scale to be able to do this on multiple millions of units of cars per year or tens of millions of cars per year with the software that they can turn on with the flip of a switch, and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose. It's at least a doubling of the valuation, in my opinion. At least, just conceptually, like it has to be worth at least double if if all their cars can drive themselves and you can just hail it, and all of a sudden you render every other car obsolete by doing that. And then we're not even talking about the bot. Like if the bot, I mean, I don't even want to talk about that. So yeah, I think that's how Tesla gets there. It does sound pie in the sky to a lot of people, but just sitting down and doing a math exercise with some projections in the future and just giving Tesla the benefit of the doubt from an execution perspective, given their track record, I think you can definitely justify $10 trillion market cap, not financial advice, but a lot has to go their way. But if there's one thing Tesla does well is making things go their way. So, in my opinion, not financial
So,
advice. Again,
so keeping with the FSD theme, Paul Guy asked, once FSD is solved, how long will it take for Robo Taxi to be widely available and accepted, and how will it be rolled out, in your opinion? Big questions.
yeah, these are great questions. Um, Once full self driving is solved, I expect it to be available immediately in areas where self driving is allowed right now. So, San Francisco, Vegas, Orlando maybe does it today. Wherever Cruise and Waymo operate right now is where Tesla should be able to operate their cars with zero problem, because those folks are already able to use their cars for those things. And the latest statistics from Cruise show that their safety isn't that much better. It's actually kind of worse than a human in most situations. It's still, it's not killing anybody, like I said before, but it's not perfect. And so Tesla already has a bar that they're sort of going to be judged against, which is Waymo and Cruise. If they're not allowed to operate in regions where Waymo and Cruise are operating right now, it would have to be 100% political or something else that's not allowing them to do that. So once it's solved, anywhere Cruise and Waymo are, Tesla should be able to do it. But then you have Tesla's advantage is scale. So if one car of theirs can drive themselves, all their cars can drive themselves. And they have cars freaking everywhere. And so at that point, it becomes which jurisdictions will be willing to let Tesla operate in the regions like a San Francisco, like a Las Vegas. So I expect places like Orlando again opening up. A lot of places in the South, I would say, they're typically a little bit less. There's less regulations around that stuff. Texas should be quite friendly with that, and perhaps other areas in the country as well where transportation is maybe expensive and people don't have a lot of access to affordable, reliable transportation. I think that's where Tesla could really, oh my good, it could be transformational, right? Imagine going into a part of the country where there is no, in the states, buses, trains, public transportation is very poor in a lot of the country, or basically non-existent. and getting around is quite expensive. A driverless car removes the most expensive part of the transportation system, which is the driver, and all of a sudden you could have a Tesla self-driving fleet in places that are least serviced from that perspective, all of a sudden become the most serviced with the lowest cost out of anywhere else in the country, which would be absolutely nuts for those local economies. And so I think those areas have a lot of incentives to allow a program like that to exist. um, a lot of the southern states compared to the northern states, their economies are not as good, and they don't offer as many solutions from that perspective. Not to say that, not saying anything about the people that live there or anything else. It's just the statistics are the statistics. So those places could benefit tremendously from a program like this. So it'll be gradual at first, but I think once it becomes obvious just how transformational it is for the local economies, it will catch fire like crazy. And any states that don't allow it will either be because their safety rule sets are a lot more strict than the rest, and perhaps Tesla needs to get there, or it's just red tape. It's just the taxi lobby doesn't want it. Like New York's going to be extremely challenging because it's super hard to navigate New York, and they're not going to trust a self driving car. And then they have a huge taxi sort of lobby union thing with their medallions that once you introduce a self driving car, forget it. That Uber had a really hard time and Lyft getting into New York, and they had to really fight tooth and nail to be able to operate in places like that. So those will probably be last, but everywhere else should be able to go live, hopefully relatively quickly.